Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow, and every single choice you have to make, from what to eat for breakfast to which career path to follow, is perfectly optimized for you by an AI. No more second guessing, no more bad decisions. Just a super smooth, efficient path to your best possible life. Sounds pretty amazing, right? But what if the price for all that perfection is the one thing that truly makes us human? Our free will.
Okay, let's really get into this. The promise of AI is, incredibly seductive. It dangles this idea of a world without any friction, where our lives are just streamlined for maximum happiness and success. But this brings up a huge question. When we hand over the steering wheel to an algorithm, what are we really giving up in the process?
And this is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? On one hand, you've got the unbelievable convenience that AI offers. It's easy, it's fast, and honestly, it's often better than our own gut feelings. But on the other hand, there's control, our own personal agency, the ability to think for ourselves, to mess up and, learn from those mistakes. Are these two things locked in some kind of battle where one has to win? To really unpack all of this, we're going to walk through 5 key areas. First, we'll look at the convenience trap. Then we'll explore why our brains just love to go on autopilot. After that, we'll uncover the so-called invisible architect that's shaping our choices, tackle the tricky responsibility gap, and finally, we'll add up the true cost of convenience. All right, let's kick things off with the convenience trap. And look, this isn't some science fiction future we're talking about. This is happening right now. We've already started outsourcing our own thinking to technology, one little piece at a time. So, the fancy psychological term for this is cognitive offloading. All it really means is using an outside tool to cut down on your own mental heavy lifting. The classic example is something called the Google effect. What studies show is that if we know a piece of information is super easy to look up online, we're way less likely to actually store it in our own brains. We don't remember the fact itself, we just remember where to go find it. And let's be honest, we do this all the time, usually without even thinking about it. I mean, when was the last time you tried to get around a new city without firing up your GPS? Or typed out a long message without autocorrect saving you a few times? These tools are, no doubt, incredibly helpful. But they're also quietly taking over jobs our brains used to do all by themselves. But here's the thing, it turns out not all offloading is created equal. Researchers actually see it on a spectrum. First, you have assistive offloading. Think of this like a digital sticky note. It just helps you remember something. Then it gets a little more serious with substitutive offloading, where a tool like AutoSuggest literally does the thinking for you. And then you get to the most concerning type, disruptive offloading. This is where the tech is so woven into what we do that it actually starts to wear away our own skills and makes us dependent. So it's not just that the technology is super convenient. It turns out our own brains are kind of hardwired to lean on it. We are psychologically primed to put our trust in automation. This tendency actually has a name, automation bias. It's our natural instinct to trust and over-rely on automated systems, sometimes, well, even when we shouldn't. Part of our brain sees a recommendation from a machine and just assumes it has to be right, maybe even more right than a human expert. So why on earth does this happen? Well, it's basically a perfect storm of our own psychology. First off, our brains are what you'd call cognitive misers. We are fundamentally programmed to take the path of least resistance, the easiest mental route. Then you add on top of that our perception that machines are somehow smarter or more objective than we are. And finally, when we share a task with technology, we just naturally put in less effort ourselves. It's the perfect recipe for over-reliance. And look, this bias isn't just some funny little mental quirk. It can have literal life or death consequences. The phrase death by GPS, and yes, that is a real term, came about from actual incidents where people followed their navigation systems into incredibly dangerous and sometimes fatal situations. They trusted the machine's directions more than their own eyes and their own common sense. It's a pretty chilling reminder of where this kind of automation complacency can lead. Okay, so up to this point, we've mostly talked about AI as a tool that we choose to use. But what happens when the tool starts using us? In this section, we're going to see how AI is shifting from being a passive helper to an active architect of our choices. And here is the crucial idea. AI systems are becoming what some researchers call autonomous choice architects. They aren't just showing you a list of options anymore. They are actively designing the entire environment where you make your decisions, subtly nudging you in directions that help them achieve the goals they were programmed for.
Just think about this for a second. On any given day, Facebook's algorithm could probably show you something like 1,500 different posts from your friends and pages you follow. But it doesn't. Instead, its AI curates that fire hose down to maybe 300 posts, specifically chosen to keep you engaged. That algorithm is an autonomous choice architect, and it is designing your social reality in real time. This, of course, leads us into a massive ethical minefield. As these systems get more and more autonomous, and as they make bigger and bigger decisions, a huge question pops up. When an AI gets it wrong, who is actually to blame?
And we are way past talking about social media feeds here. AI is already being used in incredibly critical fields. It's screening resumes for jobs, helping doctors with medical diagnoses, managing people's life savings, and it's even involved in military command operations. I mean, these are decisions that change people's lives.
One of the most dangerous side effects in all of this is something that researchers are now calling non-intentional dehumanization. Now, this isn't about AI turning evil like in a sci-fi movie. It's about a system that's so single-mindedly focused on a goal, like, say, maximum efficiency, that it unintentionally just strips away all the human stuff, like empathy, context, and compassion from the decision-making process. The goal gets met, sure, but at a very real human cost.
Now, this flowchart looks a little complex, but the story it tells is actually pretty simple. It shows two different paths we can take. Over on the left, you see the adaptive path. A leader uses AI as a powerful tool, but they balance it with their own judgment and intuition. This leads to better, more creative results. But then, on the right, you have the maladaptive path. This is where over-reliance on the AI bypasses human thought and leads straight to rigid, dehumanizing outcomes. The huge takeaway here is that how we choose to use AI makes all the difference in the world.
Ultimately, what all this creates is what's known as the responsibility gap. The sheer complexity of these AI systems throws up this kind of veil or a fog that makes it incredibly hard to figure out who's accountable. Is it the programmer? Is it the person who used it? The company? Or does the blame just sort of dissolve into the algorithm, leaving no one responsible for the mistake?
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Let's tally up the bill. This constant chase for convenience, this outsourcing of our own minds, comes with some very real psychological costs. So what exactly are we losing?
The first and most obvious cost is just plain old de-skilling. You know, just like relying on a calculator can make your mental math a bit rusty, constantly relying on AI to solve problems or remember things for you starts to erode our basic cognitive skills. Our mental muscles start to atrophy. It's a classic case of use it or lose it.
The second cost is a little sneakier, but maybe even more damaging: a hit to our metacognition. Metacognition is our ability to think about our own thinking. It's how we check ourselves, evaluate if we really understand something, and fix our own mistakes. When an AI just serves up a perfect, instant answer, it totally short-circuits that process. We start to develop an illusion of competence, where we think we know way more than we actually do. And when you put all of that together, you get to the ultimate price: the loss of our cognitive agency. That's our ability to direct our own learning, our intellectual independence, our ability to figure things out when there isn't an easy answer. We risk becoming passive consumers of information instead of active, engaged thinkers. So as we weave these incredibly powerful tools deeper and deeper into our everyday lives, the real question isn't just about what AI can do for us. It's about what we want to save for ourselves. It forces every one of us to ask, in a world that's saturated with artificial intelligence,